Zach was appointed to the position of City Manager on October 1st, 2016. Let's welcome him up for a city update.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you, Matt. I was told that your presidency was going to include samplings of your product at every chamber meeting, so I'll wait for that. Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you bright and early. Before I get too far into this, it seems like every year I forget to do this, so I want to make sure I recognize a couple of important folks who help ensure the success of our city every day. First, I would like to thank our mayor and our city council. These 7 individuals bravely have put themselves forward to represent your interests. Their work is often thankless, and it comes at great sacrifice to their nights, their weekends, their time with their family, and their sanity. Please join me in a round of applause for our elected officials. Second, I'd like to thank our city employees who've dedicated their professional careers in service to our community. While we sit snuggled under blankets on a cold winter's night, they're out clearing our streets so we can get to work safely in the morning. They make sure our kids have safe parks to play in, and they make sure that we have clean water to drink, and that the dirty water leaves your house, and that your business has electricity. They protect and guard our city, and they deserve your applause as well. Finally, I'd like to thank a special guest, and that's my wife, Lauren. She listens to my various grievances each night, then lovingly tells me to suck it up, Buttercup. She makes sure you get the best version of Zach each day, and I'd be grateful if you thanked her as well. Well, it's a particularly exciting time in your city. There are many things that you should be excited about, and it's hard to limit myself to just this morning of all the many things I could talk to you about. So I've decided I'm going to focus on 2 big themes today, change and progress. And as I think about change, I recall my predecessor, John Pinch, telling me this job would change me. And I hate to admit it, but he was right. Take my coffee consumption, for example. Here's my coffee cup that I brought with me on my first day of work as city manager back in 2016. I'd have a cup, and that was sufficient. Well, here's a picture from yesterday. It takes multiple cups and mugs to get me through the day. And speaking of coffee, there are few pleasures in life as wonderful as Saturday mornings, a fresh cup of coffee, and the flat circle of time that is the Independence Examiner's Days Gone By column. Consider this gem from November 27th, 1972. Think how many jobs will be available if industry blossoms, like many believe it will, in the Little Blue Valley. Then maybe 86% of our workforce could work here instead of out of town. Maybe they'll no longer spend 2 hours on the road each day, driving to and from work. Shouldn't all of this industry be in your city and not someone else's? Industry will locate in the Little Blue Valley, and it will simulate other commercial development. All of this means jobs. There may be new jobs for you in the Little Blue Valley someday. 50 years later, that development is finally occurring. These jobs are coming, and Independence is a city capitalizing on its immense potential. We meet today in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. So much ignorance. The greater our progress, the greater our need unfolds. I'll highlight some of our most urgent needs this morning, but I'd be remiss if I didn't begin by celebrating the incredible progress that we have made together. Since you first invited me to speak back in 2018, here's a very small sampling of some of our progress. We have aggressively addressed the visual appearance of Independence. We've increased staff for code enforcement, and cross-trained our staff to perform multiple enforcement responsibilities. 81% of our code enforcement cases are now inspected in 5 days or less, and we've had an 88% increase in proactive code enforcement by city staff. We've increased our funding to demolish dangerous buildings by 220%, and we've reduced the timeline for demolishing dangerous buildings from an average of 120 days to just 40 days. We're addressing critical infrastructure issues like streets, bridges, and sidewalks. Through the support of over 82% of our voters, we've renewed our half-cent sales tax for street maintenance and made this funding source perpetual. In turn, we use these funds to create an $18 million mini bond so we could accelerate the rate at which we are addressing projects like streets, bridges, and sidewalks. We've implemented a new process that improves the quality and extends the life of more streets across the city. For example, instead of touching every street once every 25 years, we're now able to address each street at least once every 11 years. We are on a white-hot streak of capturing federal and state funds to address critical needs. 2 projects that are particularly brag-worthy. One is the 24 Highway Complete Streets project. We'll soon begin construction on this $16 million improvement, and for every dollar the city invests on this project, we are leveraging $6 million of matching state and federal funds. Just last week, we were the recipient of nearly $900,000 in state funds to be used to reconfigure the intersection at Interstate 70 and Little Blue Parkway. This represents 100% of our funding request, 41% of the total project cost, and was one of just 28 projects awarded by the Missouri Highway Transportation Commission. We've changed the landscape of our city while beginning to address community needs with projects like the $3 million Independence Uptown Market and the $4.8 million Emergency Communications Center. Thanks to a new half-cent sales tax for the fire department, we're positioned to add at least 1 new fire station and renovate or rebuild several existing stations. Our city is experiencing much needed growth. Our population grew by approximately 6,000 people from 2010 to 2020. Among cities in eastern Jackson County, only Lee Summit saw a larger population growth. Here's an interesting fact. We're also becoming more diverse. Since 2010, the number of people identifying as white declined by nearly 11,000 people. Our growth came from the number of people identifying as Black, Asian, Pacific Islander, or 2 or more races. The city's issuing more building permits. Since 2020, the city has constructed 805 apartment units, 245 single-family units, and has seen approximately $225 million in commercial, office, and industrial investment. This has resulted in 27 new buildings, along with over 250 building additions. Our assessed valuation continues to grow. Back in 2016, in the year of 1 cup of coffee a day, the city's assessed valuation was $1.3 billion. As of January 2020, our assessed valuation had increased nearly $300 million. Perhaps no single project captures the growth happening in our community like the Eastgate Commerce Center. Located along Little Blue Parkway from R.D. Mize to Truman Road, this development encompasses 1,300 acres and involves the development of Class A light industrial and a distribution center with approximately 21 buildings totaling roughly 10.8 million square feet. This billion-dollar investment is estimated to create over 5,000 jobs and many additional construction jobs as well. Over the 33-year term of this project, the cumulative benefit to all taxing jurisdictions, like the city, the library, and the school districts, is approximately $130 million. In addition to that project, the city is seeing additional growth in the valley. We recently approved single-family residential projects totaling 200 units over the next couple of years. We've made a demonstrated commitment to public safety. Through the support of our voters, we implemented a use tax to add 30 new sworn positions to our police force. Then, voters allowed us to amend that measure to allow these funds to help ensure our police officers rank among the highest paid in the metro. We allocated $3 million of our federal American Recovery Plan Act funds toward critical public safety needs like mental health being administered through our fire department and recruitment and retention of funds for police personnel. I would be remiss if I did not take a quick moment to address one ongoing concern here, which is crime and safety in our community. While it may be easy to get lost in the nightly news, this is not the kerfuffle some would have us believe. Our police officers continue to perform well above national averages, solving cases and keeping those intending to do harm off our streets. They are working with peers across state and federal agencies to stop human trafficking, drug trafficking, and more. This community is safe, and our law enforcement continues to work hard every day to make sure of that. Finally, many foundational issues are being addressed. Last night, the City Charter Review Committee held its first meeting. The last time such a meeting was held in our city was 1985, when Michael Jordan was NBA Rookie of the Year, and Mikhail Gorbachev became the Soviet premier. This group is going to drive great progress and change in the way we do business, and I do want to thank the Chamber for advocating for this critical work. We've made progress with our city finances. The city has demonstrated an ability to control our expenditures, which has resulted in an increase of our reserve funds from $3.7 million to $6.3 million between 2015 and today. Since 2015, we've reduced our debt service as a percentage of our overall expenditures from 17% to just 5.5% today. We've modernized many antiquated business practices. We fully automated internal processes to better manage and serve our 1,200 employees. Admittedly, that probably sounds boring until you consider that when I was hired by the city, you were handed a fat stack of carbon copy paper and told to go make your benefit selections. I shudder to think about the landfills full of carbon copy papers and get hives just thinking about it. We're also better positioned to serve you, our customers. We've left the green screens and function keys of 1984 and implemented modern-day systems for our municipal court, our utility billing, our purchasing, and our accounts payable. Later this year, you'll see us roll out a brand new website and a new telephone system. If you've ever tried calling us at City Hall and using the automated voice recognition system, you know how big of a deal this is. How about that for change and progress? In the words of the great Ric Flair, woo! Tom, has anybody ever quoted Ric Flair at a chamber meeting? Okay, that's a first.
Maybe the last.
Yeah, it's going to get us a 10 on our dashboard, though. This is a breathtaking pace. And such a pace cannot help but create new ills as it dispels old, new ignorance, new problems, new dangers. It is not surprising that some would have us stay where we are a little longer to rest and to wait. We've already climbed one peak, so why climb another higher peak? Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked, "Why do you want to climb it?" "Because it is there," he said. The opportunity to grow our city is there. The opportunity to add jobs is there. The opportunity to attract visitors is there. The opportunity to solve big problems is there. This city of independence, this state of Missouri, this country of the United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them. This country was conquered by those who moved forward, and so will our future. I saw an interesting fact the other day. From the time the Wright brothers took flight at Kitty Hawk to the time the Apollo 11 lunar module landed on the moon, a mere 66 years passed. If this teaches us anything, it is that man, in his quest for knowledge and progress, is determined and cannot be deterred. There's a thought lately that keeps me up at night. The eyes of the world are looking upon our region as we are set to host the NFL Draft, the NCAA Men's Regional Basketball Finals, and yes, the World Cup. The greatest player in the most popular American sport quarterbacks our football team. How about it? Woo! Jesus. There you go. A new baseball stadium is almost assuredly set to open within the next decade, and a new airport is just weeks away from opening. The newly renovated $35 million Truman Library and Museum welcomes visitors who are there to learn the story of one of this nation's great leaders. The development of our region will go ahead, whether we join in it or not, and no city which expects to be the leader of other cities can expect to stay behind in the race for growth and development. What then will the world find when it sees independence? What the world finds today, in my opinion, is not yet becoming of a city with our place in history. Those who came before us made certain that this city rode the first waves of westward migration and the first waves of settlement in Jackson County. Our generation does not intend to flounder in the backwash of the coming age of this region. We mean to be a part of it, and we mean to lead it. Because of the incredible progress we've made together, I am confident we can set our sights higher. Today, I want to lay out 4 critical needs that your City Council has identified as areas of focus for at least the next year that will empower us to lead as a city in our region. First, we must address our aging infrastructure. We cannot be a modern city if we live off antiquated development. For example, our police headquarters. Our facilities are outdated, outgrown, and unsafe. Our staff have worked hard to address the needs of these properties with very limited financial resources. But the strategy of using a Band-Aid to address a severed artery is proving as ineffective as it sounds, and this is a problem we can no longer afford to ignore. Choosing not to proceed with this issue in years past has already had a financial consequence, as building material prices are up 19% year over year and have risen by 35% since the start of the pandemic. A facility that was expected to cost $34 million in 2019 is now estimated to cost between $70 and $90 million. Of 9 area police facilities, ours ranks as the oldest and lags behind the average age by 42 years. Meanwhile, these jurisdictions have invested nearly $22 million each into their facilities. Just like major college athletics, we have to invest in our facilities as a part of our strategy to recruit and retain talent. Your City Council voted last night to call for an election this April to help address this and other public safety needs. If approved, the ballot measure would tax recreational marijuana at 3%, with those funds being dedicated in part toward building a new justice center and ensuring funds for future maintenance of this building, as well as other public safety operational needs. While the Justice Center is arguably one of our more pressing issues, our infrastructure needs don't end there. We need $725 million to fill in sidewalk gaps, $173 million to address our most deficient city streets, and $60 million to install curbs everywhere in town that don't have them. Water main replacement is also lagging, which should concern you as business owners. On average, we've been replacing about 1.7 miles of water main annually. Our goal and the industry best practice is 7.6 miles annually. I'd be remiss if I also didn't mention the need and the significant potential surrounding our tourism assets. Our city has a proud history, but this history is only as powerful as we choose to use it. Right now, I'd argue that we are highly underutilizing this history. A few years ago, we took a trip to Salt Lake to visit with leaders in the LDS Church. What they reported should alarm all of us. They said, "You have no idea how many minivans are driving through your town each summer doing a visit of church historic sites. But when they come to Independence, there really isn't much to see, not much in the way of experiential history that moms and dads need to entertain their kids. So they drive on to Liberty to see the historic jail, then press on eastward. There are a lot of hotel rooms and goods and services being purchased outside of your town." Sadly, we know they are right. How many of you, for example, have been to the National Frontier Trails Museum in the last year? I've seen the attendance numbers. Some of you are lying. Maybe a better question, how many of you want to go to a cramped museum with limited displays and read plaque after plaque? Let's utilize our history and leverage it for economic growth. Let's build a Frontier Trails Museum that gets people to our town, to our hotels, and into your businesses. Woo! Second, we must determine the future of our electric utility. This issue is complicated, and there isn't enough coffee in this room to keep you awake and get you through it. So I'll grossly summarize it like this. Power and light is a small fish playing in a big pond. Further, it's a fish that's huffing and puffing off of antiquated infrastructure like the turbines that produce your power. Taken together, the utility finds itself at a crossroads. Without adjustments, our power and light cash reserves will drop below our minimum targeted reserve by the end of 2025 and continue a dramatic slide, projecting to drop below negative $97 million by June of 2032. Now, one of our strategies to assure that we have revenues to cover our expenses has been to defer capital projects, including replacing utility poles and other needs. That is not a good business practice, and it too has come at a price. Inflation has increased by approximately 30% since 2012. Our current power and light budget includes $4 million for capital projects when our known annual capital costs are closer to $8 million. Our power and light team has taken significant efforts to reduce costs, including closing the Blue Valley Power Plant, refinancing outstanding debt, and repairing 50-year-old combustion turbines to extend their operational life. The number of power and light employees has been reduced from 245 in 2015 to 175 today. This is a real moment of reckoning for power and light. And each of these challenges, some which are time sensitive, others which are strategic, will require a careful discussion and deliberation by our council and with the needed input of our community. Third, we have to get serious about stabilizing our city finances. All of these other goals are irrelevant if we can't get ourselves onto more secure financial footing. We have made real progress, and our updated financial forecasts reflect an improvement from last year's forecast. This can be attributed to strong financial management and wise stewardship by the governing body. But the outlook still is not great. We continue to remain below the target reserve for our general fund, and we still trend toward a negative balance of $3.6 million by 2026. One area of concern is public transit. We will need to come up with an additional $1.3 million to fund the current system by 2024. This year, we're projected to spend $3 per rider, but in just 2 years, that cost will skyrocket to over $8 as federal COVID relief dollars phase out. With the current budget projecting a deficit, it is unclear how we will fund this critical need in our community without additional revenue or offsetting cost reductions. We have less than 18 months to develop a plan for this. Finally, with less than 2 years, the city's contribution for pension systems will also increase from $16 million today to $22.4 million. Our police contribution will nearly double by 2030. These are inevitable costs and are a result of past business practices. They are financial obligations nevertheless, so that we have no option to bear, and a plan must be developed. Finally, we must address the needs of those that are houseless in our city. To me, this is a moral imperative. With those that are struggling, who have always been with us, the individuals that may be houseless on the streets of American cities have not. There are over 600,000 individuals across the United States who do not have a home on any single night. While the causes are many and varied, the consequences are usually the same: exposure to the weather, social isolation, unstable diet, poor medical care, and victims of sexual and criminal predators. Being without a house or among the shelter insecure is a result of things like urban renewal, technology-induced job loss, mental and physical disabilities, substance abuse, low wages, and the lack of affordable housing. COVID-19, of course, more easily exposed our homeless problems, but they already existed due to underlying social conditions. I do not stand before you and profess that I have the magic bullet to solve this issue, but I do have some ideas about where that conversation might begin. These ideas are not original, and they come from people far smarter than me on this issue, like our friend Doug Cowan. I would suppose if Doug were up here, he might say that we need to embrace development. We have a supply and demand imbalance. Additional developments can soften the market and make housing more affordable for all. Today, you can rarely start a rent conversation for less than $800 a month. For someone on Social Security's Supplemental Security Income Program at $794 a month, there's no way a person can rent a place and pay utilities. That person has to double up with other people or seek subsidized housing. We need to develop more single and multifamily housing across all income spectrums. We can't solely build 2,000 square foot homes on a nice quarter-acre lot and call that progress. We need some more duplexes interspersed in new neighborhoods, and we need a policy that promotes and encourages development in older neighborhoods where homes were bulldozed or lost to fire. For those on the streets, we need more shelter and transitional housing. In eastern Jackson County, there are 68 emergency family shelter beds for a population base of 300,000 people. We have nowhere in eastern Jackson County to put single men. Nowhere. The best we can do is give a man a bus pass to the City Union Mission or Shelter KC downtown. These are lofty goals, and some may ask, why choose these as our goals? I'm reminded of President Kennedy and his call in the early 1960s to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. "We choose to go to the moon," said Kennedy. "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win." Yes, these are lofty goals, and I think it's important that we are honest and admit that we are behind many of our peer cities, and we may be behind for some time, but we do not intend to stay behind. And in this decade, we shall make up ground and move ahead. Now, all of this will cost us all a good deal of money, and this community is going to have to get comfortable with tools like a general obligation bond if we want to support business and residential growth. But I think we're going to do it, and I think we're going to pay what needs to be paid. I don't think we ought to waste money, but I think we ought to do the job ahead of us. It may be done while some of you are still here. It may be done during the term of office of those who sit in here this morning, but it will be done, and it will be done before the end of this decade. So they bill this thing as the state of the city, so I suppose I ought to offer my assessment on the state of your city. I was at the 36th annual Martin Luther King celebration Monday night, and I think the lyrics that are sung every year of Lift Every Voice and Sing could capture the spirit of progress and change I see happening better than any original oration I could compose. And I will not sing. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Thank you.
Stay up here for a second.
Thank you for your presentation and for not singing. Our community is a very complex community. It's not the streets of Mayberry. We've got all kinds of challenges, and I think I speak for the room and want to let you know thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.